Fit to Love, episode 93, Astrology and Life Purpose.
Fit to Love is physical, emotional, and spiritual fitness to achieve the happy life you deserve. From exercise to cooking, relationships, and spirituality, you'll find all the inspiration you need right here with our host, JJ Flizanes.
Hello, and welcome to Fit to Love Freedom Fridays. Today's show, Astrology and Life Purpose. Now, I think that this is only the second show that I've done on astrology, so I'm going to kind of go back to the beginning a little bit and review with you some of the planets that would help you determine your life purpose. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about life purpose. Obviously, if you're listening to this show in particular, you're either questioning your life purpose or wanting to see if what I'm going to say and read to you and share with you stacks up against what you think your current life purpose is. Now, at the end of the day, it, of course, is always about what resonates with you the strongest, why you choose to do the work that you do, what kind of emotions and alignment that you have with that choice of work. And what I'll say up front about life purpose and astrology is that I believe that we're designed, or that we choose our design before we come down, to have a certain lesson or experience in this lifetime that we need to enhance both our soul and the expansion of both ourselves and of the universe. Many people, clients, friends, family, over the years have demonstrated as well as articulated that their choice of profession or work was based on what others thought they should do. Or someone chose a line of work because of the money and it paid a certain amount of money. But what ends up happening is that secretly their soul is dying and they're yearning to do other kind of work, whether it be creative or in a field that their friends or family disapprove of or are unsure about. So life purpose is a really important topic for me because I believe that if you're in alignment with why you're here and what you're here to do and how you're built to do it, then things are not only easier, but when you have conflict and contrast and lessons to learn along the way, you're much more resilient because it's in line with who you're supposed to be based on how you're built, not based on what you should do. And too many times people are chasing the money and chasing the status that someone else respects because you really deep down just want the respect and love of another person or maybe your family. You want approval. So if you're listening to the show and you already know what your life purpose is, then you're going to feel really great about all these different aspects of how to look at it from a different angle, just to do a double check. And if you're confused, if you're conflicted, if you know deep down that you're not doing what you're meant to do here, or you're very influenced by what other people around you are telling you you should do, see, my belief about law of attraction, astrology, and your soul would be that at your quietest, stillest moment, your deepest connection with who you are and connected to the universe at large and to all pure positive energy vibrating in the universe, that you have clear answers. It's whether or not you're actually slowing down long enough to hear those answers. And working into your life feeling confident and secure in your answer and learning how to not even protect yourself, but see others from a different point of view. If you're constantly trying to gain the approval of others or the love and attention from others, and that's a big part of the work that you do, that indicates that there's sort of a hole in the bucket that keeps leaking out and you keep just trying to fill the bucket, but there's a hole in the bucket. And that's a wound that is really your responsibility to patch up. That way, whatever you put in the bucket gets to stay there. And now there's not a need to keep filling, and keep filling from outside of you. You can fill it from the inside of you. So your life purpose and search for that can give you a lot of clues and indications about the kind of work you might want to try doing in order to feel secure in your choice. I did a show at the end of last year called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying, and it was based on a book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying, published by Hay House. Bronnie Ware is the author, and one of those top 5 regrets is that I wish I would have made choices based on what I wanted and not what others thought I should do. And I did a show recently about shoulding and how violent and disrespecting shoulding somebody else is. I believe that we're here to make choices that not only fulfill us, but give us a greater power to affect the world and other people. And when we allow others and their insecurities and their opinions about our life to impede what we're here to do, then we've given the power away to somebody else, and we're not stepping into what we've decided we're here to do this time. I'm going to go through a list of different signs that are part of your astrology that can give you some clues and information about your purpose. I'll also say that it's a journey. I believe that the life you're living is a journey that you've laid out before you came here, and that every step of the way, while it may feel uncomfortable and sad and sometimes wrong, that I believe all parts of that make up your destiny, and that none of it is mistake, none of it is happenstance, and none of it is random, that it's all designed and to show you and to teach you and to lead you into the place you're supposed to go. And for some people, that's going to be really standing tall and strong in your decision about what it is your life purpose is, even when everyone else is against you. Before we go into astrology, I definitely want to share something I had seen years ago from Bishop T.D. Jakes. Bishop T.D. Jakes is a minister. I'm going to say he's a Christian minister out of Dallas, and I got the pleasure to go sit in one of his sermons and services a couple weeks ago. And while I'm not in complete alignment with all of his word choices or focus on certain aspects of Christianity, I can hear the message and ignore the slight differences and opinions that we have about things. And I really got a lot out of both that sermon and other things that I've seen from him. And one of the biggest impacts that he made on me was a few years ago when I was watching, I believe it was on Oprah's network, something about living your purpose and the price to pay for living your purpose. And there were 6 things he outlined. I want to share that with you first. Number 1, you can't expect to be validated. Number 2, you can expect criticism. Number 3, you can expect turbulence and obstacles. 4, you may not have the resources. 5, you may not be in the community where this activity occurs. And 6, you may need to seek new people who are not intimidated by your skill sets and gifts. He also had a quote that I wrote down that said, if you're always the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And this list really spoke to me because I've definitely had all these things happen. I've had people question me in every way, not being validated and having people actually do the opposite. Criticism, absolutely. Turbulence and obstacles? Yes. Many, many, and many. You may not have the resources? Absolutely. That has been, from the beginning, one of those defining moments of how you deal with it, as well as a learning opportunity about money, about resources, about creativity, about business. And without that contrast or struggle, I wouldn't have been prompted to learn more and know what I know now, which I'm sure there's still more for me to learn. You may not be in a community where this activity occurs, and you may need to seek new people who are not intimidated by your skill sets and gifts. And a lot of this comes down to, again, we talked about the difference between your stuff and someone else's stuff. And I believe that searching out your purpose and committing to being on purpose means you've also committed to being able to tell the difference between someone else's stuff and be compassionate yet disconnected from their stuff while you proceed forward on the path that you know you're here to do. And there's definitely faith involved. There's definitely confidence involved. And there's definitely a connection that is bigger than you that I believe needs to be dialed in order for you to stay the course. You're going to have people come up against you at every turn. In fact, Brene Brown wrote daring greatly because after her video went viral on the TED Talks, she had lots of people questioning her and judging her and disagreeing with her and making fun of her. And it was, for her, very disheartening. And in order to be able to withstand that storm, you're going to be tested along the way. God knows I have. And you get tested from the most intimate, vulnerable places with the most intimate and vulnerable people. And looking back over my life, and I've questioned, how did I attract this? What's the purpose of this situation? And what I came up with every time was that, well, this is a test. And how I get through this is going to determine whether I'm going to let other people tell me and dictate, and the approval of others dictate what I'm going to do with my life and what I'm supposed to be doing with my life, or am I going to be able to weather the storm when it happens? Because I know my purpose, because I'm connected to me and my non-physical self, which is much bigger than who I am. So with that said, I'm just going to quickly go over the different positions of your chart that you want to look at to give you some clues. And then we're going to take a break to thank our sponsors, come back, and I'm going to read to you from Angels and Astrology by Doreen Virtue and Yasmin Boland what each of these positions means for you and what it represents. So that way when you go through your chart, you can start to look at the connection as well as your life, like what you did when you were a child and what you gravitate towards and what you're good at, and how to stop shooting yourself on the things that you need to learn differently in order to do X, Y, and Z, and how you can hire that out. We want to play to your strengths. You are a puzzle piece that fits in a puzzle in a very specific way. That puzzle is that greater design of the universe. You're a piece of it, but your piece looks different than other people's piece, and how you contribute and how you function is going to be different. Your path is not others' paths. And while someone else's path may lead you to some learning that can help you with your learning process, or an example or an idea or an inspiration, or someone's path could show you what's possible. I know I'm doing the show for that very reason, that I heard of someone else's story and I didn't know this was possible. And then when I heard it, I thought, wow, that's perfect for me. That's exactly what I'm looking for. But until I heard someone else's story, I didn't even know it existed. And at the same time, I could also use that information to compare myself to others and feel bad about it, and judge myself against others and where they are and how quickly they got there from the start, and use it to not support myself. But I know that innately my path is not their path. So I feel like learning to check in with yourself and that gut response, that instinctual response, instinct, not mind, instinct, vibrating in your body, connecting you from your head to your soul on every level, that you know if your head is quiet and you're not second guessing yourself because of insecurities, that's what you're supposed to be doing. All right, so get your pen and paper out, unless you're driving, which of course you can listen to this later. The first position of importance in your astrological chart, and we're talking about your natal chart, not your chart today. So if you're going to go to any one of the free sites where you can download a free chart, we're looking at your natal chart, the day of your birth. And for that information, you're going to need the day you were born, the year you were born, where, the city and state and country, and the time. Now, that if you don't know the time, it does affect a few positions, but you can get by without the time. So don't let that discourage you from doing this. So again, that's your birth date and year, the time of your birth, and the place of your birth. So here we go. Your sun sign. And I think everyone's most familiar with sun signs. Next, we have your moon sign, the Mercury position, your Venus position, Mars, your ascendant or rising. They're both for the same position, either your ascendant or your rising sign. And then what's not in this book that I believe is also highly important is your true node or your north node. They are, again, two words for the same position. Your true node and your north node are your soul, and also your soul in this lifetime. All right, we're going to take a moment to thank our sponsors, come right back, and we're going to get a little deeper into how each one of these positions can help you determine your purpose. Get the hottest tips and latest trends for your business success with today's Innovative Woman magazine, a free print and online digital magazine. Plus, receive the special bonus video series, Platforms for Profit, the must-have marketing essentials for outrageous success, taught by media and marketing strategist Kathy Alessandra. Who is today's innovative woman? She's a smart and savvy business owner. She is driven and committed to success. She invests in herself and her business on everything from products to grow her knowledge, services to grow her business, and events to learn and connect with potential clients and customers. You can claim your free subscription today and get it mailed to your home or office at today'sinnovativewoman.com. Is your website working for you? If it's not, and you're frustrated with your brand, website, or current online results, Every Angle Media can help transform your existing business presence and build you a website that works when you're not working. Every Angle Media is a full-service web development firm that specializes in solving problems with open-source solutions. We offer complete design services, custom content management systems, fully integrated e-commerce solutions, cross-platform mobile development, and custom third-party integration, and we're here to help. Visit our site to see our work at everyanglemedia.com or give us a call at 310-798-7228. Again, that's everyanglemedia.com. All right, so now you're getting excited. What are each one of these signs mean? And when I go have my chart done or have somebody read to me, what does it all mean? I'm here to make astrology a little more user-friendly and simple. I don't do houses, and I know that's an important part. So if you want a more detailed astrological reading, of course, there are plenty of very highly qualified people out there that you can have a reading from. But I'm empowering you to use astrology for you on a regular basis. Pick up a book or two. I've got several that I love and can recommend. The one I'm reading from right now is Angel Astrology 101 by Doreen Virtue and Yasmin Boland. So we're going to start with your sun sign. Your sun sign is dictated by which constellation the sun was in on the day you were born. You might call this your star sign. Astrologers call it your sun sign. Your sun sign is the essential you, the core you. In many ways, it's the most important part of your chart. The sun is very yang, so it's more male energy in your chart, even if you're a female, while the moon is actually the yin, it's the female energy, the feminine. The sun is all about will, power, and desire, but not usually in a sexual way. The sign of your sun colors how you express that will. Important note for cusp babies. If you were born on the cusp of a sign, the day when the sun moves from one sign to the next, you are not, quote, a bit of both signs. You are one or the other. It's that simple. Many people don't realize that the sun doesn't actually move from one sign into the next on the exact same day each year. There's a variation of up to 3 days. The date that you read in a horoscope magazine and newspapers, and also in this book, are actually an arbitrary guide. That's why they can vary from one publication to another. So just make sure to do, and I actually did a couple different sites just to make sure that I had the same thing for all different places in my chart. And actually one site did vary it, and I found myself feeling like I was having a crisis of identity in that moment. Because like, what? Wait a minute, I've never seen that before. So I ended up going on like 3 or 4 or 5 different sites just to verify, and I took the majority of them and said, I'm going to stick with that one. So the sun sign is the essential you. It's the core you. Now let's move to the moon. The moon sign is dictated by which sign the moon was at the time of your birth. The moon spends about 2.5 days in each sign, so even if you don't know your exact time of birth, it's still possible to work out your moon sign. Your moon is another of the main centers of interest in your chart. It tells an astrologer a lot about you, what you need, how you feel, and what you're like emotionally. For example, stable or spontaneous, cautious, or calculating. It also represents the most important women in your life, your mother, wife, sister, and so on. Plus, it has to do with what makes you feel comfortable, like the way you felt when your mother cared for you, hopefully. Now, I'm going to mention that the moon sign represents how you deal with emotion. And we did mention that the moon is the yin. It's the feminine side of you, and it's how you handle emotion. So now we have the sun and the moon, and then your Mercury is next. Mercury is all about how you express yourself, the way you talk, write, and think. Mercury influences how you make decisions and whether you're outspoken or quiet. It even influences which books you read, write, or enjoy. It's about words, language, and where your ideas come from, where your attention is, and how well you communicate your thoughts. It's about how you learn and how your brain works, and it determines if you're likely to jump to conclusions or make considered responses. It's about whether you're stubborn, curious, or prefer to not analyze things at all. Now, I'm going to tell you that my Mercury, while I have prided myself on being someone who's studied astrology for many, many years, it's probably going on 20 years, I had never really read too much about my Mercury. And my Mercury is in Aquarius. And while I've got Aquarius in my Mars as well, I was actually pretty blown away by what I read in this book when I first got it in March of last year. I'm going to read to you my Mercury. I believe that your Mercury is going to give you a huge indication. Now, each one of these ingredients makes up who you are. And I think the total sum of all of the pieces will give you some clarity about what you like and don't like, what you're good at, what you're not good at. And to not, so for instance, actually I have a story about a friend of mine. She is a Gemini. She's also ADD, but she's a Gemini, she's ADD, she's extremely feminine, and when it comes to left and right brain activity, she's very right-brained, which is the more creative side. And for years and years, and she might still be doing it, for years and years, she kept beating herself up in her business because she kept wanting herself to be more strategic and more linear and more organized and more concrete. Yet Gemini is an air sign. And air is about thoughts and ideas. And then, of course, you put that into she's feminine and she's right brain, and we've got no feet on the ground. We're going to go where the wind blows. So that's a strength, and that is what it is. And you don't want to take that square peg and try to put it in a round hole and beat yourself up by telling yourself that you need to learn something that's just not in your wheelhouse. While you can do it, it's a question of, does it make sense for you to do it, or can you hire out? Will you be more productive by hiring someone who's built to do that well? I would think you'd get a lot more done a lot faster, and then your energies can be directed towards what you're built to do. So my Mercury in Aquarius, I'm just going to read a little bit of it. And I read this back in March, and I was blown away and a little bit nervous. Now, here's a fabulous combination. Mercury is the planet that's all about how you think and communicate. And Aquarius is the sign that's inventive, witty rule breaker with a capacity for brilliance. And if you think that sounds like a pretty good combination to find in your natal horoscope chart, you're right. Aquarius is arguably the most progressive of all the signs. You're a forward thinker capable of coming up with ideas that will lead the world towards its next evolution. Okay, so not every person with Mercury in Aquarius will come up with an idea that helps the world turn more modern, but many of you can and will. I'm going to stop there because that was enough for me to go, okay. Okay, yes, I am a visionary. I'm a rule breaker. I am someone who says just because you said so doesn't mean it is. I need to understand it and make my own choice. I'm the person who feels lonely and left out or have in my past because I was thinking things other people weren't. I want to talk about things that other people don't. It's a very small community and a smaller niche of people. And so therefore, I always wondered if I was just weird and wrong, and why don't I fit in? Really, why don't I fit in? Well, when I started to understand astrology, I understood that. And so embracing that, of course, I step into a place where I get people who don't like that and who say to me, well, who do you think you are to think you're good at that or that you can see that? I mean, growing up, I saw patterns and behaviors that I talked about, and people said, well, you don't know anything because you're 12 or you're 15 or you're 18 and you're not a mother and you're not a psychologist and you're not a doctor and you're not a whatever. And so their discomfort or lack of trust in me would challenge my trust in me. So I want to share today's show with you for the reason that I want you to start to learn to trust you, no matter what anybody else says. And then you go inside of you for the answers, and then you're going to start to look around at who you're vibrating with in harmony and the people who are your people, and not try to sell yourself or your services or become what other people want you to be, but sticking true to who you are. So we've got your sun, your moon, and your Mercury. Then we've got your Venus. Venus in your chart is about how you love, whom you love, and what you love. It's about relating to others. Venus also shows what kind of romantic partner and friends you seek and how you attract people. The sign and state of your Venus guides whether you're the detached or clingy type or someone who needs a gorgeous lover, as well as whether you have high or low standards for partnership or are someone who is worried there's not enough to go around. Venus is also about aesthetic tastes and how you express yourself creatively. Venus guides other things like beauty, pleasure, and abundance, but for this book, we're focusing mostly on love relationships. I'll quickly tell you a little story about my Venus. All of my signs are in the last section, in the last third. I divide astrology into thirds. The first, the second, and the third section of astrology, because each sign has three. There's 3 air signs, 3 earth signs, 3 water signs, and 3 fire. And so the first of each one of those is the least evolved, and the last one is the most evolved. And so all of my planets fall into the last section where they're the most evolved, with the exception of my Venus. My Venus is in Aries. And for one of my past relationships, and I consider myself a very gray person. I don't necessarily think anything is black and white. It's about the situation. It's about the point of view. I just don't look at life as black and white. Yet, in a relationship that I was having, we were kind of in a hiatus and we had broken up and then we kind of got back together, but I couldn't get him to say we were together or not together. And I had a hard time with it. For a long time, that concept bugged me to no end. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? Why am I demanding to need to know, are we on or are we off? Because it's so black and white and I'm so gray everywhere else. Well, I consulted my chart, and of course, my Venus is in Aries. Aries is the first of the signs, and Aries is all about black and white, right, wrong, left, right, yes, no. So no wonder I had no patience for being in a gray area, and my need was to know, okay, we're going to function differently. There are different rules if we're together than there are if we're not together. And so I found myself needing an answer there because, again, astrologically, that's how I'm built. So Venus can give you information about how you deal with relationships. Next, we have your Mars. Mars is a planet of anger, aggression, sexual intimacy, and determination. The sign and state of your Mars will describe how you chase after people, dreams, jobs, and anything else. Mars is the planet that you use when you argue or fight. It determines your conflict resolution style, whether you're likely to fly into a rage or your temper has a slow burn, whether you're a peaceful negotiator or you're conflict phobic. Because Mars is also about sexual intimacy, it speaks volumes about whether you're an earthy lover, insecure, sensual, or romantic. Your Mars guides how you get things done and what motivates you. Okay, we have 2 more left. We've got your ascendant or your rising sign. Your ascendant, also known as your rising sign, is dictated by your time, date, and place of birth. It's a record of the constellation that was coming up over the eastern horizon at the time of your birth, as seen from the place you were born. Your rising sign has been said that it's your personality, what people think you are. And we had a lovely woman who responded to the podcast, to the show, to the last astrology that I did, who also wrote on iTunes. She gave me, thank you, by the way, if you're listening to the show, she gave me a great rating and told me she enjoyed the show, but she was an astrologer, and that your rising sign is actually sort of in your later years what you grow into. So that's what we know about the rising sign, is that it's your personality, what people think you are, what you're projecting, and then later in life, it's what you grow into. And so some think it's much more important than I have been led to believe in the past. So the last sign, which is your true node or north node, comes from Astrology for the Soul by Jan Spiller. This is one of my favorite books to look at because it's so rich. I mean, the whole entire book is literally just about this position. The sign in which the north node falls denotes the psychological shift that needs to occur within the personality. The house containing the north node shows the experience that allow the person to access this new psychological awareness. For example, if your north node is in Aries in the 7th house, you are learning to develop a new sense of self-identity, north node in Aries, through becoming aware of the identity of others, north node in the 7th house. Through working cooperatively with other people and supporting them in reaching their goals, you will discover your own true identity. However, when you turn that around and focus on yourself, you lose your identity in trying to please others and be the nice person they expect you to be. In this case, the key to self-identity would actually lie in helping others in the search for their identity. So that's just an example of how she uses North Node. And in each section of the book, there are attributes to develop, there are tendencies to leave behind, there's something called the bottom line. And then each chapter has sections that are different. They're not the same in each explanation because there are different themes that come up for each sign. So if you're curious, I will tell you that that book did help me make sense of many relationship conflicts when I could understand how someone was coming from a different point of view. For me, and I would guess for you, when you have someone who disagrees with you or something happens and you go, how could they think like that? That's an indication that they don't think like you and that the way they view the world is very different, which is why I use astrology to understand how are you looking at the world? What's important to you? How are you seeing things that's different from me so that I can communicate in a way to get both our needs met? That's how astrology for me is most important. So hopefully now you've got a lot of juicy things to sink your teeth into to start to uncover, if you don't know already, what your purpose is and clues that lead you to your strengths. And it doesn't have to be that some horoscope or astrological person tells you to work in these areas of life. In fact, I was supposed to be working in just the arts. And while that's where I started, that's not where I am right now. But each thing has led me to where I am today, which is what I feel like living my purpose. And it's going to keep growing and expanding as I grow and expand. So I hope you've enjoyed today's show. I'd love to hear if any of this impacted you in a positive way, if it gave you some clarification that you might have been looking for, or if you just disagree because maybe you've been taught something else. But I'd love to hear the conversation. Come on over to fittolove.tv and let me know. Have a fit and fabulous day. Do you commit to an exercise program every year and then give up within the first 60 days? Are you ready to be accountable to yourself and uncover the personalized changes that will work for you long term? Consider the 30-day Jumpstart program. Visit the products page on fittolove.tv to get started today. The Fit to Love podcast show offers you 6 days a week of helpful content to achieve the happy life you deserve. Movement Mondays and Tasty Tuesdays are weekly video casts, while Wellness Wednesdays, Thoughtful Thursdays, Freedom Fridays, and Sexy Saturdays are audio-only shows themed every week to address your holistic life and needs. If the show inspired you, we would love for you to share it and subscribe. Thank you so much for joining us today. Head on over to fittolove.tv for recaps of every show, resources, and to join the community. That's FIT2LOVE.tv. Have a fit and fabulous day.